Welcome to your Thursday News Hub. I'm Sarah Murray. Tesla is unveiling a slew of new updates that are in the works for its Model S, and it looks like a self-driving feature could be just months away. The WSJ's Mike Ramsey joins me now with the details. Mike, what are the highlights for the new Model S?
So this latest update is going to bring in what originally Elon talked about, sent out a tweet, said, I'm going to end range anxiety, which is basically the fear of running out of charge that people in electric cars have. It's a big inhibitor to buying them. What he's done is the software communicates with their charging stations, their supercharging stations, and it calculates how fast the driver's going, the topography, the distance, and it will warn you. It says, look, if you go past this point, you're going to run out of charge before you get to your destination. The idea is that it's other electric cars have features similar, but nothing that actually will tell you directly, no, you can't go past this point, or you'll run out of charge, or you're fine to go this far, you're going to make it. So that was one feature, but it also, as part of the download, they're also doing other things like a valet function that you can press so that if you give the valet your car, they can't go tearing off 100 miles an hour or mess with your personal information. And it has other features like blind spot detection and an automatic braking system for safety. And it's just really unprecedented to be able to add these kind of features to an existing vehicle through software updates. I mean, this is really where Tesla is different than the other car makers. It's not the electric powertrain. It's stuff like this.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to buy a new car. You can just update your software. Now, they also mentioned that a self-driving feature might be available for some of these cars coming in a couple months. What do we know about that?
You know, this is amazing. Talk about burying the lead. You know, he brought up the next update, which will be in 3 months or so, and he said that this will have using the existing sensors on the vehicle, which are like cameras and radar, you will, once you get on a major road or highway, you'll be able to press the autopilot and essentially the car will just drive itself to the destination. It's not going to be usable in like congested areas like Manhattan. You would never be able to use something like that. But if you got on the road on, you know, on a long highway on 95 or something, you just let go and the car drives itself for 400 miles or until it runs out of range. This is stunning, and I mean, it really is advancing autonomous driving way past what's available today, and is just doing it through a software update. So, I mean, how well it works is going to be a great concern, but I mean, it is an amazing thing that they're talking about adding. Furthermore, it's going to have a function on private areas, like if it's not a public road, a fetch function where you can say, come get me, and the car with no human in it will drive to your location and pick you up.
That is really incredible. I guess all this begs the question. I mean, we knew this was coming. We thought it was, I think, further down the road than 3 months from now. Is this legal? Are you going to actually be able to have this car and just kind of turn it on to drive itself on a highway? I feel like there are going to be some concerns about that.
I think so too. I think that Mr. Musk was asked about this, and he says we're in constant contact with regulators. One thing that's true is that in most states there are no regulations about this, and in the United States, as long as it's not prohibited, it is allowed. So really, you might have more problems in the states that already have some provisions for autonomous vehicles. So I don't know how that's going to work out. It's certainly something that needs to be looked into. But there's already evidence, like the Mercedes-Benz S550 is on the road. It's legal. You can take your hands off the wheel for a while, or it will drive for up to like 10 seconds. You know, so there's already vehicles that sort of do something like this, but nothing to this extent. And it's going to force regulators to react quickly and maybe make a decision about how to address this thing.
Yeah, really incredible. Lots of exciting changes coming. Mike, thanks for joining us with the story. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more on the News Hub in 30 seconds. And it's time now for our markets check. can see there the Dow Jones Industrial Average ending the day down about 117 points, nearly 0.7%. Moving on to the NASDAQ, up for the day a little bit less than 10 points, 0.2% there. Not a ton of movement in the NASDAQ today. And the S&P ending the day down about 10 points, about 0.5%. You can see their stocks are in a little bit of a slump after yesterday's rally from the Fed statement. Today we're seeing oil prices retreating, so that's been weighing on energy companies. That's part of that decline today. And turning over to some corporate news, Guess reported its earnings plunged 23% during its fourth quarter. That number, though, was still at the high end of analyst expectations, and that spells good news for the stock price. You can see Guess stock is up 16% for the day. Pretty incredible. Now let's take a look at how Apple stock is doing. It's the first day Apple is trading on the Dow. The stock notched some gains earlier this morning, but ultimately ended the day down about 0.75%. Apple's move to the Dow has our Money Beat columnist wondering if the stock's best days could now be behind it. You can read more about that on WSJ.com. Moving on to some sports news, anti-doping advocates have a new ally in their longtime crusade against inconsistent drug testing in college sports. It's the NCAA's chief medical officer. WSJ's Sharon Terlep joins us now with her exclusive story. Sharon, thanks very much for being here.
You're glad to be here.
All right, so this guy, it's the NCAA's first chief medical officer, Brian Hainline. How is he weighing in on this drug testing debate?
Sure, he's weighing in, and this is really unusual for someone very high up in the NCAA. He's saying, he's talked to us, he said it kind of privately to schools and administrators, that there needs to be consistency, that schools can't just kind of decide how to implement drug policy, what drugs get tested for, what ones don't.
So what's the problem now? I mean, obviously they're not doing it the same way. Why are schools resistant to making these changes?
Sure. I mean, schools, and most major sports, everybody kind of operates by the same rules. I mean, schools, what they say is we're a university. It's our job to look out for the well-being of these students, and we have thought-out policies. We've had doctors weigh in, and we don't want other people telling us what to do with our students.
So what does Brian Hainline want to do? And is he having any success, I guess, more importantly?
Sure, yeah. And I mean, to answer the second question, nothing's happened yet. It's in the early stages. I mean, he doesn't get to make these rules. I mean, the schools really have to agree with it. So he can work behind the scenes. He can advocate for things, but he can't tell them what to do. He thinks that there needs to be drug testing carried out by the conferences and by an overarching body. So those bodies would do the testing. There would be one policy for everybody. So everybody would be operating by the same rules.
What's this guy like talking to him? Because it seems like for him to start weighing in on this debate and nudging all these schools to do something they don't really want to do, you got to be a pretty interesting guy to want to take that on.
Well, yeah, and I think, he's an NYU neurosurgeon. He has a long history in sports, but also in academia and in medicine. So it's interesting because he's pretty soft-spoken. He almost speaks academic talk. He doesn't come out with, big fiery words. And so I think people respond well to him in that environment. But he said, and he told us, he said when he took the job, he said, you know what, if you want me to just, be a rubber stamp, don't give me the job. I don't need it. I'm not afraid of getting fired. So I'm going to say things that might not be popular.
Yeah, clearly he is following through on that. Sharon, very interesting story. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll be back with more on the News Hub in 30 seconds. The music business is evolving, and as more musicians turn to live music to sustain dropping album sales, that's having a big impact on roadies. Neil Shaw reports on the new roadie culture.
First of all, I have no tattoos, and I don't have long hair either, so there's two stereotypes that I've dispelled right there.
Roadies, once the gritty backstage grunts of live shows, are cleaning up their act. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll are out. Efficiency, tech skills, and professionalism are in.
There was a reputation of a lot of indulgence. It's become way more technical, and you have to be way more competent and way more technically proficient in so many different areas at this point. If you have a substance abuse problem, you're not going to be able to hang with it. The hours are too long, the travel is too much, and the stakes are too high also. The culture has definitely changed.
A typical roadie job can pay around $60,000 a year on average, but experienced roadies like Mr. Zinker can earn well above $100,000. Longtime roadie Tom Weber, who maintains guitars for bands like Van Halen and Nine Inch Nails, says he can earn about $200,000 in a good year. With decreasing CD sales a reality within the music business, live performances are now more important, and with that comes the need for skilled technicians.
Artists don't make any money selling records. You have to be on the road to make money. So there are more bands on the road as a result of that. And if you're competent at what you do and you are somewhat aggressive, you can absolutely make a living and make a good living.
The frequent travel and long hours of the job can be rough on relationships and on health, but many say they wouldn't trade it for anything.
Personally, the big advantage is I get to do what I love, and I love mixing live music. I'm not always thrilled with living out of a suitcase, but on the other hand, I've been to so many places that I never would have had the opportunity to visit, and I don't think everybody can say that.
All right, that's it for your Thursday afternoon News Hub. We will be back here tomorrow morning. I'm Sarah Murray.